Chazak uvaruch. Be'ezrat Hashem, we're going to continue what we started yesterday, the coincidence, and so to speak, we have in the Megillah, Li'ul Nishmat Yechezkel ben Avraham. Ve'Moshe ben Avraham, V'torach kol Shas Mod Yisrael. Yesterday we spoke about the story with the chair of Achashverosh, that all of this just make it to be the capital, the Shushan, to be the capital of Persia. And now we continue to the next story that also look like not related, but actually very related, but we're still before the Megillah. The Megillah not even started yet. We have a story way before the story of the Megillah starts. As we said yesterday, Achashverosh wasn't supposed to be a king. He took over the kingdom. He wasn't the rightful king. He took over, but it wasn't enough for him only to rule over one country. He ruled over the whole world in the end. He started only to rule over Parasu, Madai, and Bavel, because Parasu, Madai took the kingdom from Babylon. But then he had ambition to be like Nebuchadnezzar. And Nebuchadnezzar ruled over the whole world. That's what he wanted to do also. So for this, you need to conquer countries. And that's what he used to do. He raised so many soldiers. He had a lot of money for this. And he conquered a country after a country. The Megillah started after he finished all of them, 127 countries. And that's where the third of Achashverosh starts. But before that, there is a story in the Midrash. The story of the Midrash that one day the Indians, the kingdom of India, they sort of didn't really obey the Achashverosh's kingdom. So he sent his two generals to fight and basically make them quiet and make them obey. And those two generals was Haman and Mordechai. Way before the story of the Megillah, that each one is in his position, they had a different position. They had a different job to be the generals of Achashverosh's army. Haman had his own soldiers, Mordechai had his own soldiers, and they went there to fight. When you go to fight, you go to war, you have at least two things you need to take: weapons and food. You cannot win without weapons, you cannot survive without food. That's what they took with them, and each troop had his own camp. Now, one day, say the Midrash, that one day, Haman and his army that wasn't really calculated right, the days, they finished all of their supply of food. Now, you are out in the middle of nowhere, battlefield. If you have no food, you're not going to survive. And the soldiers of Haman came to him and they wanted to harm him. We're hungry. We're fighting, hungry. We cannot survive like this. So he went over to the camp of Mordechai. And then he told them, we want food. And Mordechai said, no, it's our food. We also have soldiers. He said, please, I'm willing to give you anything, and even I'm willing to give you myself as a slave. This Mordechai agreed. Not only because he wanted a slave, he actually never used Haman as a slave, but just because he wanted to rule over Amalek. Haman is the remainder of Amalek. He's the great-grandson of Agag, Amaleki. So he wanted to be the children of Am Israel going to be ruled over Haman, the Amalek. So he said, that I agree. I can give you food for this. Now there was nothing to write a contract on, not only by shaking hands. So Mordechai took off his shoe, and Haman wrote in the bottom of Mordechai's shoe, I am Haman, slave of Mordechai, and signed his name, and that's it. Mordechai gave him some food, of course, left some for himself, and that's it. That's where the story ends. Years later, Mordechai actually never used it again, but he just kept reminding Haman. And that's what's going to explain to us what was the big deal for Haman that Mordechai not bow down to him. The whole world is required to bow down to Haman, and that's what they did, Jews and non-Jews. There was one guy, Mordechai lo yichra velo yishtachave. That's the only thing. The Megillah not mention any other person. Yet, Haman was really angry. He was really frustrated to see that Mordechai is not bowed down to him, that he say, I'm not going to only kill Mordechai, I'm going to kill all of his nation. Why? Who cares? So one person not bow down to you. The reason is, said the Midrash, that Mordechai not only was standing still when Haman passed. Of course, Mordechai had his own reason not to bow down, because halachically it's not allowed. You cannot bow down to a person, only to Hashem. Mordechai wasn't only standing. Every time that Haman passed by next to Mordechai, Mordechai lift his foot and point on his shoe. Basically remind Haman, I'm not the person I need to bow down to you. You need to bow down to me. Now when Haman saw it, he was afraid that this whole thing going to be revealed. He was so mad because he said to himself and to his children, to his family, "V'kol ze enanu shoveli." It's worth nothing for me. Why? Because if everyone bow down to me, but I'm the slave of Mordechai, so everyone bow down to Mordechai. If I have all of this money at Kol Oshro, if I have all of this money, but I'm the slave of Mordechai, so what a slave have, it actually belongs to his master. So everything belongs to Mordechai. That's what made him so angry and wanted to do what he did. So this part of the story is linked as a chain. And again, as we said, every part of the Megillah, every part of the story is needed, because the story of the Megillah is different than any other story of miracle. Usually we know by stories of miracle, Hashem split the sea. That's it. Without any interfering, without really a build-up in there. The water turned into blood. The oil lasted for 8 days in Hanukkah. And that's it. But the story of the Megillah is basically the story of our life, that is just a build-up. One story leads to another story, that each one of them mean nothing, but when you combine all of them together, you have the story of the Ness of Purim.